And we're back with another KATcast. Today, it's all about the decades. Battle of the decades. In our opinion, what we think is the best decade. Music, movies, art,
TV,
clothing,
whatever, yeah.
style, fashion, whatever we can think of. What is the best decade? Kevin, what do you think?
Well, I'm just going to preface this by saying I think no matter what we come up with here, it's really going to come down to what was influential at the time we were, like, say, teenagers.
It's probably true. It's probably true.
Because that has an impact on you as you're growing up. I'm a child of the 60s and 70s for the most part. I was born at the end of 58. But, I mean, the major media influences on me were in the 60s and 70s. So I'm naturally saying, man, let's just start with music, for instance. The music of the 60s and 70s, especially the 60s, man. The bands that came out of the 60s, the Beatles, the Stones, the Who, rock, just in general. Country. So much of what we call now classic country came out of the 60s. So it's part of the reason I'm a Beatles nut, so.
Okay.
That's just music. So.
Okay. I was born in 78, so 80s and 90s is my jam, but especially the 90s. For me, it's all about, grunge music and also 90s country music. That's where you had your Garth Brooks. For me, that's when George Strait was really cooking. The Judds. It was, for me, it's a soundtrack of your life, basically. I was a big Pearl Jam fan at the time, and Soundgarden, Nirvana. That was the music that you could not escape, and it was everywhere. And it was music that I absolutely loved. And to this day, if I walk into a store, if I'm flipping through stations and I hear something, I'm like, oh, well, that takes me back. And I got to finish it,
See, for me, and it's funny because I like all genres of music, but again, because of the time period you grew up, I am a child of the 90s, and what was super popular in the 90s, what was really starting to get, hip-hop was really starting to rise up in the 90s, early 2000s. So it's probably why I like it a lot. I like a lot of different genres of music, but I play that a lot. Again, I grew up, that's what I grew up with. You got to remember, I had, the Tupac was growing up in these are Biggie, all these people, like insane, influential rappers.
Okay, I'm glad you said that and not like Criss Cross and Vanilla Ice, because I was going to call you and say, Criss Cross. Really? Cute, but no.
Back when Will Smith was the Fresh Prince. All that. Yeah. It's like, again, I like that kind of stuff. But again, I'm a kid of the 90s, you know what I mean? That also, the 80s inspired me a lot. Like my dad, I can't tell you, I was force-fed all sorts of 80s hair bands. And I love them. I love them because, again, what was blaring in my dad's car? That's
Poison, Rat.
That is a very good
Def Leppard, all of it.
No, that's a great point that Jordan makes, actually, because part of, I think a lot of us anyway, music that we like, and it's a nostalgic thing for us. My parents were big band fans, so I can listen to Glenn Miller. And all of that. I love that music. Dean Martin, the classics like that. Sinatra and the standards. To me, I put that on, and yes, I like it for the music. I really do, but it's also a memory of my dad, especially. So.
Duran, Def Leppard, Poison, Cheap Trick, that kind of stuff. My dad loved. And of course, I loved it too. So
I mean, classic country was my dad's jam. So, I mean, it was not uncommon if we were driving down to Grandma's house on Saturday morning and we're listening to Dolly and Loretta Lynn and
Patsy Cline. And, all that.
Definitely Patsy Cline. I mean,
Hank also?
Oh, Hank Sr.
Hank Sr., yes.
Hank Sr.
Yes.
And it sparks a memory, and it's all happy memories. So, I mean.
There is a connection there when you hear that stuff.
What do you think the best style is of those decades?
See,
this is tough because you say 60s, and everyone was in suits, nice looking, you know what I mean? Had the fancy hats.
Well, I mean, I know what you're saying, but not the rockers.
That's true, not the rockers.
That's the thing. You had bands that came out in the 60s. I mean, and again, I like a lot of. I'm a fan of pop. I grew up listening to pop. I mean everything from the Archies, to I mean, stuff I heard on the radio. I listened for the most part.
Men
to
grew their
pop radio.
hair out because of the Beatles. I
It's
remember
true.
I loved the Beatles so much that I was like, I grew my hair out because of the Beatles.
The Beatles mop top look that they had.
Yes.
There were parents complaining about that they were a bad influence on their kids because they were doing that.
And see, I know Kevin and Jordan both, they love the Beatles. I'm one of those people.
Yeah.
Just don't really get
Yeah.
That's what Erin said to me the other day.
I
He goes,
told
don't
Kevin
get
that the other day, and he looked at me like I ran over a puppy. And that was not my intent. But I'm sure, me saying, "Hey, I love Pearl Jam," that's my jam. He's probably like,
Everyone's got their own taste in music.
Absolutely.
and that's what's great is
Absolutely.
everybody can like what they like, and you do you. That's what's great about this.
Well, it's funny when you talk about the 70s. Okay, everybody, what's the first thing that comes to mind when you think 70s?
Big hair.
Yeah, I think
Music style.
music stuff.
70s.
Diana Ross.
Okay.
Yeah,
Disco.
sure.
I thought you were going to say disco.
Disco?
Because
I could
everybody's
say
like,
that,
oh,
too.
disco.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, yeah. 70s were huge disco from about 74
But that was like,
to the
about
end of the
mid.
decade.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But there was so much more in the 70s than disco. That was, and honestly, there was a lot. Some disco I liked, but I got to tell you, I liked Barry Manilow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? I liked,
We all know you love Neil Diamond.
I'm a huge Neil Diamond fan.
Yeah.
But see, Neil Diamond has a pedigree that goes back to the 60s, too.
Wait a minute. Does Neil Diamond, what is his fan base
What
called?
about Hendrix? Were you ever a Hendrix fan? You like Jimi Hendrix?
Yeah, I appreciate him. I wasn't a fan.
some Jimi
What, I don't think
Hendrix
Neil
growing up.
Diamond has Diamond Heads, or I don't know. I have no idea.
That's what I was going to ask
See,
you.
that's what I'm saying. I'm not like that. I just love his music. I saw the jazz
Like, are
singer.
you part of the Diamond Mine or something like that? I don't
Diamond
know.
Mine. Oh, I like that.
Yeah, I
if
don't
nobody's claimed that, you should copyright that.
You know something though that I do think like through each one of those kind of decades, perms. Ladies had crazy, poofy,
Barbra
curly
Streisand
hair,
had
and it was
great
throughout. Like it lasted even through the 90s.
It's
It was
true.
still like that.
It's true.
So, fun fact, I wanted curls so bad. I was born with stick straight hair. And so my mom was like, okay, if you want curls, that's fine. My brother was dating a cosmetologist at the time. And so she was like, okay, if you want a perm, we'll do a perm. So here's little grade school Erin Hart with the cotton around, and I'm holding a towel around my face with the perm solution and everything. I had great curls for like 3 days or whatever. And then you would wash it.
It's gone.
It'd go back to
Gone.
stick straight.
Yeah.
My hair was like that until, honestly, my pulmonary embolism. So around 35, right? Now I have this weird kind of natural wave to my hair. And some days it's more prominent than others. I swear it's got to be some medication
Is this
that I'm on.
sort of a hybrid?
for my
or-
pulmonary embolism. It's got to be like my blood thinner or something that now has done something weird to my hair because it's no longer stick straight. But it's not curly either. It's just got this weird wave to
The
it.
hair gods said to Erin, here's what we're going to do for your hair now.
It can be wavy. It can be neither curly nor straight.
It's not going to be the curl that you wanted, but
But it'll make it a little more interesting.
I'd
A
go over
little
to my
tip of the hat to
grandma's.
the curls.
I'd go over to my grandma's like every Sunday. We'd go and eat, and it was always funny that my grandma would be curling her hair. A lot of the times we go, like depending on what time of the day we'd show up. Sometimes we'd get there early enough where grandma wasn't quite ready for
Right.
her day. So but I always remember grandma having like these like pink and blue like little the
Oh, yeah,
things
the
that you
foam-
put,
the foam
little
rollers.
foam rollers that you put in your hair.
Because
Yeah.
my mom put those in my hair before picture day at school. So I had like the big curls
When
in
we
my grade
talk-
school pictures. Yeah.
When we talk about hair, I know you guys have seen the picture. I used to at one time. I know it's hard to believe with this, okay? But at one time, I had a glorious mane of hair.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it was a fro. I'm
It
not
was
exaggerating. It was
poofy.
up to here. I had a plastic pick that I used to keep it up like that. And I'm telling you, man. So that was like in the late 70s to almost 80s, whatever. But I mean, it was mid. But that was. I loved it, So a lot of times it's like I don't mind losing my hair now because I really enjoyed it when I had it, so it was okay.
The 90s was very bright colors, very geometrical shape designs on clothes. It's like, I don't know, a circle and a triangle with the yellow and neon blue. That's cool looking. It's very like I go to think about like some of the fashion and stuff of the 90s.
The sweaters in the 80s were the best.
That too.
Because they were like the bright colors and the geometric shapes, and everybody wore them. They were all hideous, but we didn't care.
Neon knee-high socks and scrunchies. You remember that?
Yeah. Well, when you're talking about fashion, I mean, again, you go back to the 60s and even 70s, bell bottoms.
Yeah.
Because guess what? So much stuff that you see now, oh, yeah, we already did that 40, 50 years ago.
That's right, kids. Lainey Wilson did not invent bell bottoms.
No.
We had them way before that.
I was wearing them when I was 12 years old, okay? And we had, you talk about the colors?
Yeah.
I have a picture somewhere of me as, I was 11, 12 years old, but I had these striped, it was like orange and green and white and yellow, like striped bell-bottom pants. They were awesome.
You remember when crop tops used to be like for men? You remember that? Like a lot of football players used to that's what they used to do.
Like the jerseys.
Yeah, like early 90s, kind of early 2000s. Before ladies wore the crop top, show their belly. Men did that. Like mostly football players, they wore a lot of their outfits. If you saw, they wore crop tops.
You'll be excused if you're a football player on the field on a hot day wearing that.
I'm serious. I'm serious. It happened all the day before it got real popular, and the ladies took it. You saw football players everywhere in crop tops. It was so common.
We're talking about the what decade, what era, if you will, was the best music, movies, TV show. Speaking of music, where the 60s, you cannot point to an era that was more revolutionary in terms of music, how it changed. Motown and rock, and the way it was experimental, and a lot of so much change happened in the 60s in music, and a lot of it was you had things like the civil rights movement was going on, and you had artists and bands and everything who were like playing into that. And it was to some people it just seemed like the world was going crazy. But man, the music that came out of that decade, unbelievable.
You know what I think of that decade is like the Sinatra style sound. You know what I mean? That kind of
but that was still going on too. But what I'm saying is rock
did start
took
heavily
over,
taking
man.
over
It really
big
did.
time. Yeah. Because then that bled into then where it started to got into the hair bands after that. It was it went from it was rock, heavy rock.
You get guys like Clapton and Cream, the band Cream, and the Who and all those. Breaking guitars on stage and everything like that. It was what is he doing? Oh, he's breaking his guitar. Oh, that's got to be expensive.
So my brother Clint was in basically a garage band, but we didn't have a garage, so he was in a basement band. And they would come over to practice and everything. And for the longest time, I used to think, wow, my brother, they really have some really neat music. I wasn't realizing that they were doing all covers.
From way back when.
From all these different, bands and everything. Yeah. I was 5 years old. Cut me some slack. But, I would sit there and think, wow, these songs are really good.
Yeah.
It wasn't until I was 6 or 7 that I realized, oh, okay, so that's Aerosmith.
Yeah. It wasn't my brother writing these songs.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Quiet Riot. Okay. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I have to say, I think the 80s is probably the best when it comes to movies. The movies that came out. I'm talking Star Wars, Star Trek came
Anything
out around
from
that
John
time.
Star Wars came out in the 70s.
70s, technically.
77
close
was the first
to 80s.
one.
So late 70s, early 80s.
I'd say anything from John Hughes.
Yes. But my gosh. I think just
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, Pretty in Pink, The Breakfast Club.
Everything was so original, too. Everything, it was a unique idea. They ran with it. Everything was just...
And now they're rebooting it all.
Yeah. Everything's remakes and reboots because
Hollywood is out of ideas.
All the ideas were in the 80s.
I am going to agree with you guys. You might feel the same way about the 80s, Erin, because this is one thing where I think the 60s kind of failed. 60s... There were exceptions, but to me, the 60s were not a great decade for movies. You had some great ones that came out. The Graduate, 2001, A Space Odyssey. You had Sound of Music. Planet of the Apes. Those came out with then. But really, 60s was a lot of weird movies came
really
out.
Bizarre stuff.
They were experimenting, weren't they? They were trying to figure it out.
Especially when you get into 67, 68, 69, Clockwork Orange, I Am Curious Yellow, and things things that I've never actually even seen, okay? But I've heard about them. But anyway, Midnight Cowboy came out.
Yeah.
But anyway, the filmmaking was changing. The way they made movies was changing. And by the time you got to the 70s, man, it looked kind of completely different.
No, that was a time where it's like it reminds me of like the era when YouTube first came out. Like, it's like no one really knew what
the Bond
to do.
Flicks.
Yeah, the Bond flicks are good.
Were a huge part of the 60s, but
But it just reminds me of that. It's kind of like everyone's trying something unique. You know what I mean? Where it's like everybody
wanted to
strange.
stand out.
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly.
Yeah. No, I agree.
But once you get to the 70s, yeah, you're right. I mean, Star Wars.
Oh, man.
Now again, as it comes to TV, 60s were pretty great. I'm talking as a child of the 60s and 70s. Erin, what's my favorite show of all time?
What? Show or?
Show.
It's got to be Star Trek,
What am
right?
I always talking? Thank you.
Star Trek. It's got to be.
How come Jordan knew that? You had a brain fart.
I had a mental moment.
That's okay.
You put me on the spot there.
Star Trek began in 66. Okay,
66.
ran for 3 seasons.
I always think of that as a movie versus an actual show.
I know.
Forget
It's a
that
show.
was an
It's a
actual
show.
But here's what's funny. They didn't realize how big it was going to be. It only survived that 3rd season because of a fan campaign to write in.
Yeah.
It was really only going to run 2 seasons, so they gave it a 3rd, and then it was gone. And Star Wars came out, and suddenly Paramount realized, you know what? Star Wars, that Star Wars thing, they're on to something. So they said, let's revive Star Trek.
Yeah.
And it turned into a hugely successful franchise after that. But they thought it was buried, dead, and gone, So
I'm glad, and it's good that they did come back because it's like it fits so well within that era of what was going on. It's like this is everything's sci-fi during the 80s.
When you look, it's funny when you look at Star Wars now, the original, the one from '77. You look at the graphics on it. It wasn't even CGI, but you look at it and it's to a degree anyway. It is kind of cheap looking.
That's when we got all the good
effects.
monster movies, man. The remake of The Thing, the John Carpenter thing was great. That's when we got Alien. That's when we got Predator. That's when we got all these awesome creatures.
Although Terminator came out in the 80s.
It was the 80s,
84,
yeah. Still great, too.
But even then, you look at special effects from that era compared to now, and it's rather primitive.
Although there's something about that practical effect that I love. Like, there's something like when a filmmaker still uses that. Like, I'm fine with CGI, but like, there's something about a real prop. Like when they act, like it's just it's different. It's different on screen. You can tell they're physically interacting with an object, with something that also could potentially terrify them too.
Yeah.
I just love it. It makes it look more grotesque and like a creature design and stuff.
Right.
You might be surprised to hear me say this. If I had to pick an era, let's just say a decade, we'll narrow it to decade.
Okay.
For the best movies, I think I'm going to say the 80s.
I think
it's the 80s because something about those flicks. They stay with you, and again, they're out of ideas, so they're trying to repeat them.
We're trying to go back.
Well, there was a ton of good TV shows in the 80s as well. I mean, I loved Alf and Punky Brewster, and you're laughing. Why is it what's so funny about like a big fuzzy alien that's every week trying to eat
cat.
The cat? I don't know why, but little Aaron Hart that was hilarious. And I had a cat, and I loved that cat more than anything. But for some reason, I just thought that was hilarious.
Hey, Aaron, I'd like to come over.
Facts of life. There was just so many good 80s
80s
sitcoms.
was a good time for sitcoms.
Yes.
70s and 80s, actually. But the 70s, sitcoms... this is what I was going to tell you.
70s and 80s, by the way, when animation started getting real good, too.
Yes, and you're a huge fan of animation. Yeah. This man loves animation, let me tell you.
I do.
But, a while back, I guess I was homesick. I forget what it was, but I was home, or maybe I was home alone for a day. And I said, I'm going to watch like just an old episode of something. And I put on The Streets of San Francisco, okay? Michael Douglas and Carl Malden. I was going to say Karl Marx. Carl Malden. And I love the theme. It was like a great theme.
Oh, yeah.
But then I watched the episode, and it's it looks so old.
It doesn't stand the test of time.
No, kind of. I mean, part of it is, they're using cars from the, early 70s and all. I get it. But, just some of the acting and even old acting is just like, No,
It's not
real.
good.
And
It's
it
not
wasn't
good.
even real to that time. Like, even people during that era didn't talk that way. But in acting, they did.
So if we get like a snowy weekend or a rainy weekend, the husband will find something for us to watch. Okay, and usually it's either a trilogy or of movies, or it'll be TV shows. One year it was The Love Boat.
Love
really?
The Love Boat.
No, it does not stand the test
No,
of
it's
time.
cheesy. Cheese galore.
It's
Yeah.
awful.
Yeah.
But like about 6 episodes in, I'm like, why did I think this was so great when I was a kid? Oh, because I was a kid. Also, Friends. Unpopular opinion.
Yeah.
Friends does not stand the test of time. It is like just cringy.
You don't like Friends?
to watch now. It's.
I haven't seen it recently.
I was going to tell you,
but-
speaking of Love Boat, you know what was really...
I'll throw Golden Girls up against Friends any day.
She is the
is
Golden
good.
Girl queen
Golden Girls is good.
of Missouri. Now, here's the thing with Love Boat, which is always really weird, because, the whole thing was there were people on that boat looking for love, looking to hook up and this and that, right? For some reason, so many of them were always after the doctor. Like, what was so special about the doctor?
I don't know.
You know what I mean? It's like, okay, if that's what you're
Maybe
after.
they were looking
I mean,
for the
it's just
money. Maybe they're like,
Or they're looking for
doctors
the
are
meds.
rich.
I don't know.
Or yeah. He can write me prescriptions.
I mean, if anything, ladies, if you're going to go for someone, go for Isaac behind the bar. You know what I mean?
Isaac looked like he was a good doctor.
Isaac was a good-looking guy. You know what I mean? I'm just saying. But,
man.
What was the, as far as you're concerned, what was the best era? TVs, movie, music. That's what we're talking about here today. Decade, era, whatever you want to say. Although I have to admit, and again, I'm not a fan of like, say, rap and there's only a handful of rap songs that I like, and only because they've made their way into the popular culture. Like, I like big butts, and I can't, like stuff like that. I like. Okay, I can listen to that and enjoy it. But or Rick James.
Oh yeah,
Rick James was kind of amazing. But
James wasn't a rapper.
no, Rick James.
no, I know it was funk.
I'm
I
Rick
know.
James.
He was a funk, but I'm just saying that style of music.
I do like that style too. I do like funk as well. Funk is also
See?
great and fantastic.
Yeah,
See?
George Parliament.
Yeah, jazz, by the way,
Yeah.
also fantastic music. If you don't like jazz, it's very improv jazz is, but wow, is it
Yeah.
good.
I like and enjoy rap in the gym because if that can't get you pumped to get through whatever it is you got to get done, I don't know what will.
It's true.
Because, I've tried to listen to country in the gym. I love it, but it's like I find myself slowing down to kind of,
no, you know
sing
what?
along and
Hey,
dance along to the beat.
you gotta
stuff.
keep it going, man.
but it's
Hip hop
like, no,
and
you
rap
gotta
is very
keep-
hype, very
high energy.
motivation,
Yes.
self-motivated,
It
get it
is.
done. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true, man. That and again, depending on what era you're looking at, the 70s had disco. That would probably work for what you're talking about.
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
it really pumping disco.
I just think about John Travolta every single time you say
I just
disco.
remember my sister-in-law the time I picked out. It was like a George Strait playlist, and it was like it started out with "I cross my heart."
Oh,
She's
no.
like, "Oh my gosh,
This is
I
not
can't
going-
get hyped to
This
this."
is not going to work.
And I'm like,
sorry, King George.
I'm like, lifting weights and promise. What's wrong with this? Yeah.
Sorry, George, not today.
How about them cowgirls? No!
You're like, look, I need something a little bit more
Oh, my
motivational than this.
Oh my God! Highway to hell! I don't know.
That'll do it. Yeah.
That wouldn't quite work either. But anyway, this is too much fun, you guys. I mean, we could probably go on for an hour with some of this
Probably.
stuff,
No, probably.
But you want to weigh in? Share your thoughts. What's the best music? What era? Decade?
Yeah,
whatever.
anything. Battle of the Decades. We'd like to know your favorite decade, and you can do that by emailing us at catcountry@mailzimmer.com.
Yeah. All right. There you go. So I don't know. I guess, like I said, it all comes down to the era. In fact, didn't we talk about this once? That the music that was popular when you were, 12 or 13 years old or something like that, is what stays with you.
Yeah.
So for
probably.
me, that would have been stuff from like 72. And I love music from like that year, 72, 73,
So for me, that would have been like
74,
90, 91. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's also just really cool to see things get back in popularity. I love seeing things fall out like, oh, this isn't cool anymore. And then all of a sudden,
And we're like, wait a minute.
20 years later, all of a sudden, it's like, it's cool again. You got to get it back. You got to get it back. It happens all the time with things.
Yeah.
It's cool watching it.
Weigh in. We'd love to hear from you. That is another edition of the Cat Country KATcast.